Annie, welcome to the Feminine Frequency. It's so lovely to have you here. I've had the honor of connecting with many of your clients, and you bring such a unique flavor to the world of relationships, and not just regular relationships, but extraordinary relationships in the world.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I know how much you love the work that you do. So, I'd love to start there and just hear like what is the passion behind like creating these extraordinary relationships?
I have this private frame that I work for the future unborn child of the couple. So whether I'm working with a single or a couple, that's what I'm thinking about. How do I create a relationship that if a child were to come into it, they would be held in this synchronized hammock of love? How do I help that couple learn to collaborate and work with their differences to create a safe space for whether it be an actual child or a project they create or whatever value this relationship makes in the world? So I'm always thinking of that. But the best way for me to help the future generation that I've found is to actually work with singles who are done with dating and ready to find their soulmate and set them up to build their self-esteem so that they attract the highest caliber mate, or working with couples who are in love and they're committed and they have these recurrent problems or fights or issues that they can't transcend. And after I've been doing this for so long now, there's only so many fights couples have, and I've kind of seen them all. And I've actually had them all. I mean, I fought with my husband probably more than any couple I've seen. So I've bootstrapped ladders out of the hellhole that couples get into myself. And so I have a lot of maps and a lot of tools about how to resolve conflict. And in particular, how to alchemize conflict into an education about your partner and into increased intimacy. So the passion behind this really is I want to generate a future where children are raised in a home where they're not fragmented between the delta and the antagonism between the parents because they've learned to transcend their power struggles. That's one thing. And the other thing I'm driven by is I want to change the source code on how love is done in our culture. This whole idea like happily ever after, or it's supposed to be, why is it so hard? It's supposed to be easy. All these delusions that people are comparing their relationship to. I kind of want to banish happily ever after bullshit. In my experience, the game of life is to be alive. And the opposite of dead is not happy, it's alive. And so I want to change it to alive ever after. What's the relationship that maximizes your aliveness? And your aliveness means being able to experience the full spectrum of your human emotions, like from joy and delight and jealousy and envy and shame and fear and despair. The whole spectrum. And when you are in love with someone, you got to learn how to hang with all of those if you want the relationship to work. And so that's a big part of my work is disavowing my clients of this fairy tale bullshit and to actually get that you're going to choose a partner who triggers you. And we can talk about why. And you're basically choosing a gymnasium and a dojo that is custom crafted by the universe and your higher self to create a context for you to build your emotional muscles. You go to the gym to build your physical muscles. Everybody knows if you're going to join CrossFit, it's not going to be a walk in the park. You're going to break a sweat. Shit's going to get hectic. So true love relationships is like the CrossFit games for your emotional muscles. And so I want to train people to realize we're hiking up Everest here. This is the big game of being a human being. It's the biggest game there is to fall in love. I don't think there's any work that's harder. And so I want to be the Sherpa that helps them up Everest. So that's kind of...
Yes, I want to unpack all of this because that vision that you have of really creating safe, healthy relationships for future generations, because we know that our relational patterns are impacted by our parents and our grandparents. And there's these generational patterns that get passed down. And then I'm also hearing this deconstructing of societal narratives of fairy tale love and how that sets people up for failure in relationship, because when challenges come up, we don't know how to handle them. And we're not taught how to navigate conflict, which is really an area that you specialize in. So the way that I love that you speak about conflict is that we can actually use conflict to learn more about our partners, learn more about ourselves, and to create deeper intimacy. And I'd love to just dive right in there and hear you've worked with so many couples who navigate conflict. And what do you feel is something that many couples struggle with, like when it comes to moving through conflict?
Okay, so first of all, I just want to normalize conflict. Like, I actually don't trust a couple that tells me, "Oh, like we're so happy and we never fight." I'm like suspicious of that shit.
Yeah,
I'm like, there's probably termites eating at the foundation of the house, and it's going to collapse one day. And so, conflict is healthy. Think of conflict as when you go to the gym, you have to lift the weight, and if you lift the right amount of weight, you rip the muscle, and then the muscle goes, "Oh, we got to grow back stronger." You don't want to lift weights that are so heavy you're out of commission. And so there's a way to do conflict where your heart muscle, the emotional muscles in the relationship, get stronger every time. So see conflict as you're going to the gym and you're building your muscles. And there's a way to handle conflict such that both partners, once they resolve it, are actually really glad they had the conflict and wouldn't go back in time and change it. And that's available through any conflict if you know the skill set and the tools to create healthy conflict. So most people, they don't have those skills or those maps or tools. And so they like go to the gym and lift the weight that's too heavy and then they're out of commission. So there is a skill to fighting, the art of fighting. That's a lot of what I teach. And so I kind of want to normalize that conflict. No one's like going to the gym is healthy. And you got to know how to lift the weights. And so conflict is your relationship going to the gym. Okay, so that's the first thing. So we want to normalize that. And then you said, what do they have conflict about? Gosh, everything. But really it comes down to like money, food, money, sex. I mean, really is the distillation. But the way I think of conflict, first of all, you have two people, any two people. They come from different backgrounds, different families, systems, different value sets, philosophies, perspectives. And now you're together in love, but you have different desires of how you want reality to work. So conflict is inevitable as you learn to tessellate and dance into a relationship. And so I see conflict as a collaboration trying to happen, but getting undermined because they don't have the tools, or they do certain patterns like coerce and threaten, punish, manipulate, or the pattern of collapse, which is say yes when you mean no, or give in but secretly resent your partner. So I see coercion and collapse as the two enemies of collaboration, which produce conflict. So I'm basically always coaching my clients and my students to notice when they're doing either, because we do both. Fine, whatever, I'll just go along with your thing, but I'll secretly hate you. Or coercion, where you're like saying, hey, will you do this thing for me? But they're not actually free to say yes or no because you're going to punish them or withdraw your love if they don't give you the answer that they want. So it wasn't really a request, it was a demand in disguise. So I'm always trying to help my clients see where they're playing those games and help give them new tools so that they can actually collaborate. And collaboration is a process, it's a skill, and it requires you getting clear on what you want, understanding the values behind what your partner wants, and then letting go of your death grip on it having to go your way and trusting that there's an emergent, intelligent solution that can come out of both of your needs and wants without knowing what it is. It's an emergent. So you have to kind of let go of, well, I want this thing to happen my way, and trust that the two geniuses between you and your partner, because hopefully you're with the person that you admire the most on the planet. That's never settle for anything less than that. Sometimes my clients are like, well, I just want someone I can grow old with. And I'm like, no, you need to be with the most inspiring human you've ever met. Don't settle for anything less than that. So let's just start there. And to do that, you have to start cultivating yourself to be the kind of inspiring human that they'd want to be with. So it's all, it's not about finding Mr. or Mrs. Right. It's about becoming Mr. or Mrs. Right. But there is technology around collaboration. And so to me, that's how I teach conflict resolution. It's actually how to collaborate, because a collaboration is a conflict done right. A conflict is a collaboration done wrong. And so I don't think many people realize that those are two facets of the same thing. I'm trying to remember what you asked about. Okay, what do people have conflict about? I mean, let's just be straight about what a couple in love is doing. Okay, sure, we fall in love and we're like, let's live together and get married and build a life. But from the evolutionary standpoint, you're looking for a mate to have a baby with and procreate. Even if you don't have a child, the sexual imperative, that's evolution, that's life itself trying to persist. So you're looking for the best co-parent to create a time capsule, i.e. child, for your immortality into the future. And so when you're choosing a mate, you're actually choosing someone that you'd like to co-create the most important collaborative project you're ever going to make. And so you want to choose wisely. It's the most important decision you ever make in your life, I think. Who's the father or mother of your child? And so I want to make sure my clients get that there is no decision more important that you make. And so what tends to be underneath most conflict, whether they realize it or not, we call it the power struggle, but what it really is whose memes, ideas, philosophies are going to get smuggled into that psyche of that immortality capsule called the child. That's what the power struggle is about. Even long before you have the kid, you're like fighting over values because you want your reality to win and you want that reality to perpetuate itself into the future. But once you realize that you're in love with the most extraordinary, inspiring, amazing human you've ever met, then, which is what I'm trying to teach my clients to remember, then why wouldn't you want to get their genius coupled with yours? It's kind of like in your own mind, you have the left and the right hemisphere. And if just the left hemisphere is making decisions, it's never as good as if both were working together.
Yeah.
So I think of the male and the female, heteronormative, we'll speak right now, both partners are like two halves of a brain. And we need synchronized collaborative genius to come out of those two different value sets, the left and the right brain. And you basically choose a partner who you most trust the genius of to collaborate with.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, why would you trade in your own genius unless it was getting upgraded by adding theirs?
Yeah.
So that's really what conflict is about, is learning to collaborate with the genius of your partner and noticing where what you're clenching onto is actually a cherished old belief that was a ladder that got you to where you are now, but is actually keeping you back from where you need to go next.
Yeah, I'm loving this conversation of shifting out of conflict into collaboration. And it does require us to really look at our ego of where we feel like we need to be right or where our idea is the better idea. And I think, something that I love about your teachings, and I've learned a lot from you, but also from people who have worked with you, like there's little sayings or analogies that you use. And I can't remember if it was Adi and Michael. Yeah. I think they shared this analogy where you're like, okay, instead of being in conflict with your partner, you want to like get on the same team as them and you're working together to resolve it, which is basically what you just shared. And
basically you go from, we're in a duel.
Yes.
Where I'm against you and there's a winner or a loser. And the way I see a conflict is it's you and your partner linked arm in arm and you're fighting this third entity. And that third entity is a misunderstanding. And I've noticed all relationship conflicts are usually the same misunderstanding. And the misunderstanding is, I don't feel seen, heard, understood, respected right now, which is all a form of I don't feel loved right now. So once you realize that every fight, no matter what it is, you left the cap off the toothpaste, you're yelling at the kids, whatever the thing is, underneath it is your partner doesn't feel seen, heard, respected, understood. And that's usually not what you're trying to do. So, I'm always trying to teach my clients how to speak to that and not fall for the presenting issue.
Yeah.
About the cap on the toothpaste.
Yeah, let's go there because I think a lot of people want to feel loved and they want to feel understood and heard and seen. And yet our culture, we don't learn emotional intelligence. We don't learn in school. How do we hold space for someone else's experience? How do we really see people? So is there anything for couples who, or an individual who's in a relationship where they don't feel seen or heard, like, what are there any practices or ways that they can approach conflict differently?
Well, it's interesting. Whenever I have a client or someone say, I don't feel met, I don't feel seen, I don't feel heard and understood, it always implies that they don't feel seen or heard by their partner. And what I've noticed is that every time you don't feel seen or heard by your partner, it's because you're not really seeing or hearing yourself and standing for it.
Wow.
We train our partners how to treat our needs, wants, and desires. We train them. And if you're like, yeah, I'll just cancel that appointment because my partner needs to go on their trip, that you're training them to see their needs as more important than yours. And you're training yourself to abdicate from the caretaking of your own nervous system and your own needs and wants. And So I don't feel seen. Usually when I dig underneath, I can show the client how can they see you when you're not even seeing it? So if you take me to your house and we walk through the front door and you keep your shoes on and we walk right over the white carpet and put your shoes up on the white sofa, I'm just going to follow you. I'm just going to walk in with my shoes and put my shoes up on the white sofa. You train me how to treat your life. And we train our partners how to treat our needs and wants. And so the place I want to work at is, how can I get you to see and stand privately for the little girl, the little boy inside that wants something, and give that part a voice and a dignity and honor that. And once they've learned to do that privately in their own mind, then they can congruently articulate that to their partner. And then their partner will hear, oh, they're serious. And then what you're getting from your partner then is respect rather than approval. And that's one of the main things that I have to teach a lot of women. There's a compulsive propensity to optimize for approval, like me, think I'm good, I want to be in rapport with what you want, which generates approval, but not respect. And a man doesn't fall in love with the woman he approves of the most. A man falls in love with the woman he respects the most. And I think once women realize, oh, in order to generate respect, I have to train him to see me and my needs are important, but I can't train him to do that if I don't even see them that way. So it's an inside job that then shows up on the outside. So as you represent your needs, wants, and desires with congruent dignity, your partner either steps up and goes, okay, yeah, got it, it's important, or they graduate. They realize, oh shit, I can't be the parasite anymore, and I got to move on. So that's what I'm training usually my female, but my communal clients, the ones that are more empathic, I'm training them to have a goddamn backbone and stop being a martyr doormat and to stand for themselves. And I might have to do intergenerational work to support that, see ways in which them playing small connects them to their family of origin, or they have payoffs. So I have to find ways to seduce and market them into having a backbone. But once I do that, their partner usually steps the fuck up to their next level self. And their partner actually wants to respect them, but they need your leadership. You got to go first.
Yeah. You just mentioned this piece around the intergenerational patterns. And, I think that anyone who's listening to this podcast, anyone who's doing personal development work, they consciously want to change. They want to be the best version of themselves. They want to be the best partner. They want to call in better relationships. However, there is a part of them that keeps them stuck in their old patterns. And so I want to unpack this a little bit and really just normalize that these patterns are not just our own patterns. These patterns are familial patterns. These are patterns from our childhood. And we have to take a look at these in order to really rise up and elevate our relationships. So tell us more about this intergenerational piece that you're talking about.
Yeah, the wounds from the womb. And, when we say intergenerational, you can think of it as a pattern moving down through the generations. And it's not like it's a bad pattern. Like every piece of reality just wants to persist. So the pattern's like, oh, maybe I can get it myself into the next generation, We can't blame it. But then we have to keep asking ourselves, like, is the pattern that my parents ran as they parented me the best pattern that we could come up with if we were going to come up from scratch? And if it's not a fuck yeah, then let's create from first principles what would be the pattern that you would create for your future generation. And a lot of us just go on autopilot and just like ditto, copy, paste unconsciously. And so I think really the mark of great parenting is to work from first principles and go, this is the thought experiment I have. It's like, if you were going to seed a planet with humans and you could set up the laws of physics, emotional relationship rules of parenting, what would you prescribe? Like if you had a clean blank slate. And then I get them to start thinking about it, not copy pasting and dittoing, and then we can get something new. Elon Musk, when he had to build a spaceship, he could have gone to NASA and been like, okay, what did they do? And copy it. He didn't even look at that. He was like, from first principles, how can I make a spaceship that is reusable, that is efficient, that maximizes on reusing parts? And he built the most efficient spaceship. And I think as parents and as lovers, we have to be willing to reinvent the relational game from scratch. I think every couple reinvents love anew. You can look at elders and friends and go, well, what are they doing that's useful? And can I copy that? But ultimately, you got to make up something that works for both you and your partner from scratch. And that's a collaborative process. But wait, you asked a question. I want to make sure I come back to it. Intergenerational. Yep. Okay. So the main thing I want to say about that is because I've been really studying the dance across generations. And when I work with a client, I'm working on 3 levels at once. I'm working on the client and their partner right now or their future partner, because I'm holding that in my mind. I'm working on their future. I'm setting up the stage for their future children that aren't born yet. So I'm working with the future transcestors. And I'm also working with the parents of the 2 people in the relationship. In my mind, it's not like I'm talking to some. If they let me talk to their parents, I'll do it. But energetically, I'm working with 3 layers of the generational field. And so I'm looking at how the client I'm working with is playing out patterns, often unconsciously, to stay in communion and connected to their family of origin unconsciously. These, Bert Hellinger, who's a family systems therapist, called these suffering obligations of love, which is ways that we want to stay loyal and belong ourselves to our family of origin. And we just pick them up from our childhood home, kind of the way like you might pick up an accent if you grew up in the south of France. And you're just like, oh, this is the accent. But if you look on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it starts with food safety and belonging. Belonging is very basic. And if you want to have a meaningful, fulfilled, actualized life, that's way more sophisticated on Maslow's hierarchy. It's higher up than belonging. So you're never going to trade out the umbilical cord of loyalty and belonging to your family of origin in order to have a successful life, because it's more foundational. So a lot of times when you hit an upper limit, I'm like, I can't make more money, or my relationship's not working, or I haven't been able to succeed in this one area. It's often because there's a way in which where you are right now, the pattern you're playing, is a strange unconscious loyalty that keeps you in communion with your mom, your dad, your family of origin. And you don't even realize it. Like, maybe your mom and dad were farmers and they were simple poor folk. And you get a chance to do a fancy job in New York and you say no to it because you don't want the increased responsibility or you don't want to move to that side of town. But what's really underneath it is an unconscious discomfort with going beyond the financial level that your parents had hit, because it feels like you're leaving them in the dust, or you're snubbing them, or you're out of rapport with them. Or maybe they said rich people are bad and you don't want to go into that category. There's all these unconscious reasons that keeps you small, that if you were to actually sit down with your parents and be like, would you like me to stay poor so I can be in rapport with you? They'd be like, hell no, go off and be rich. So a lot of the work I'm doing intergenerationally is helping my clients see that the patterns that they're playing out sometimes that are suboptimal given their dreams are hidden ways that they stay connected to their family of origin. And what I want to do is honor that umbilical connection. I don't want to snip it. I don't want to cut it. But maybe create a new, different designer umbilical cord, or like loyalty
it's got to be
cord.
hot pink or something, that designer.
Yeah, when I say designer, I mean like build from scratch. Like,
okay.
Like I used to run guilt as a mom with my daughter. If I was away for 2 hours, as soon as I'm walking up to the house, I'd run out, oh my God, I feel so guilty. I abandoned my daughter for 2 hours. And I would feel this guilt in my body. And I would go, what? Where? And I realized if I traced the guilt down, it was my mom's. I was literally running my mom's guilt. And then I would be, once I realized that, I was able to go, my mom passed away, but I could just hand it back to her. I'd go, Mom, this is your guilt. And I could see her face going, give me back that guilt. That was never yours to begin with. And so I unenmeshed from my mom's guilt. And by the time I got to the front door, instead of my daughter interacting with my guilt, she could just have her mom happy to see her. And so the way I transcended running my mom's guilt to stay loyal to her is I do other things to connect to my mom. The reason I wear bright colors and jewelry is because my mom loved to decorate herself. So every time I dress up, every time I put on a scarf or earrings, I'm like, Mom, what do you think? Do we look good? And I've created a designer new way to commune with my mom, who's passed away, that she would be proud of and I would be proud of. If she knew that the way I was being loyal to her was by feeling guilt around my daughter, she'd turn over in her grave. So it's about not, it's almost like I build a new super highway that connects me to my family of origin, and then this old one dwindles. 'cause it's not getting used.
I love that so much. The honoring of the family of origin and then upgrading that system. And yeah, I've heard, I'm sure you're familiar with Gabor Mate's work, and he has this one clip on YouTube, and I share it with a lot of my clients around authenticity versus attachment.
Yes.
And I love how you described it with, with the family systems and all that. So there's so many layers to it, but really, a lot of the work that I do with my clients is about being authentic in their life and then being authentic in their relationships, and
authentic to what? Their true
self. Yeah.
Desires.
However, we have these attachments of, if I'm my true self, then I'm abandoning, or I'm having subconsciously we feel like we're not going to be loved by our family if we're actually our true self. So
we're out of rapport with our family of origin, and to be out of rapport, even while that means you're fully self-expressed, to be out of rapport. Remember, if you're out of rapport with your tribe, if they don't approve of you, like back in the day when we were on the savannah in Africa, you could be marginalized and left to die. So we need to belong to the tribe. Except I want us to belong to our tribe in a way that both our tribe and us can clap for. Most of the time, the way we belong ourselves to our family of origin is an unconscious habit that we picked up from 0 to 10 that neither your family nor you are being served by.
Yes.
So that's what I mean by designer loyalty, instead of unconscious, just picked up, out of habit.
Yeah.
And so it's basically, I want you to be loyal to your family of origin, but let's just do it consciously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that perspective. And yeah, there's so many different models that you teach. I remember there was one thing that you said to me when I met you here in Austin a few years ago. And I wanted to share this with you personally, that it really impacted how I chose my partner. And my partner is someone that I find to be very inspiring. Like, I've never been with a partner I'm like, oh my God, I'm very inspired by who this person is in the world and how he shows up for himself and in our relationship. But there was one thing that you said, and this is, I think, more for people who are single, who are looking for a relationship, but it also does play out in existing relationships. So you said to me when I was dating, and you were like, be aware if you have a certain type. Because if you keep going after the same type, you're likely repeating patterns from your childhood. And you want to make sure you're looking at that and be open to other types of men, right? And getting into this relationship was a huge pattern interrupt and a breaking of that, attracting men who they had a certain look, but they also had a certain way of interacting. And it was, emotionally unavailable, and there was this dance that I was playing, right? And so it was so powerful to be in that choice point of like, am I going to keep choosing this like type of person?
Well, you're not choosing. You see, if you've got a type, then the type's choosing you.
Yeah.
You took control and you're like, I refuse to be puppeted by some typology pattern. I'm going to be available to any quality man. My rule when I talk to a single is like, unless you're repulsed, date them. Like literally, just get the practice in, date anyone that is not repulsive, neutral to positive. Because if you're only waiting for that one that gives you the chemistry and oh my God, I think about them all the time, that kind of obsessive intensity usually indicates two wounds fucking. And wound on wound action happens, it's explosive, but it usually doesn't last. And so I want chemistry, but the really healthy relationships are the one that has neutral to slightly positive chemistry, and then it grows over time.
Yes.
I would take that any day over, oh my God, I just met them and I can't stop thinking about them.
Yeah. Not only that, but then I'm going to go tell all of my friends who this person is and how amazing they are. And then a few weeks later, you're like, oops, never mind. He wasn't that great. Yeah, but
you need a year of due diligence.
Yes.
You need a year to watch them through different cycles. Anyone who's like, oh, I met someone 2 weeks ago and we're getting married. How many times I've heard that. I don't want to take away the excitement and the passion, but you don't really know someone until a year in. So don't get married or have a kid until you have a year of research and due diligence. You get to see you and them through different cycles and seasons. 1 year minimum.
I'm so there with you. And I mean, part of it comes from my lived experience. I got married young and I was, divorced before I was 30. I got divorced when I was 27. And my partner also was married and divorced. And so I think for us having that lived experience, and there was no like race or rush or this like, we need to get into this relationship and take it to the next level. It's like, no, we actually want to go slow. And for me, in order for me to go slow, and something that I learned was I actually had to slow down the physical intimacy as well to really get to know someone, because otherwise I was just seeing them through this lens of like how amazing they are. Yeah. And then it was like I couldn't really get to know them. And so it was like developing that emotional safety before I went into physical intimacy, and taking time to get to know someone before diving into like having this, our lives are merged together and we're living together in a relationship, And just like you, I was like, I don't want to take away the excitement and the spark from people. And I also I've seen it so many times where it's like, you just see it play out over and over again. And there's exceptions. I'm sure there are relationships where there's the sparks and then it works.
And you keep it. But
it's rare.
The the precoital tension is really magnificent. And you ain't getting back that again once you start having the sexual connection. So if you can elongate that and make it rich and tense and amazing, like there's something really yummy about that precoital tension. Also, the woman, there's a huge investment to have the sexual connection. Back in the day when we didn't have contraception, you could literally have a child out of it. So I think it's important to be really picky about where you spend your sexual attention, especially as a woman. And so, go as slow as you need to integrate the data so that you're moving at a pace at which your esteem is increasing, not decreasing. I think watching how your esteem is going. Our job is to optimize our behavior so that our esteem is continuously increasing. And self-esteem, I think of it as like there's your values that you aspire to live into, and then there's your behavior. And there's always a gap. And the bigger the gap between your values and your behavior, the lower your self-esteem. The smaller the gap between your behavior and your values, the higher your self-esteem. And so I'm always trying to train my clients to look at, is the behavior you're engaging in right now with your partner, with yourself, do you admire it? Does it make you fall more in love with yourself or not? And if it's not, let's find the behavior that does, because then we're building your self-esteem. And remember, the quality and caliber of the mate you attract is in direct proportion to your self-esteem. So I'm actually, with my singles, I'm a self-esteem coach. I'm trying to build their self-esteem with lots of technology, one of which is training them to behave in a way that they're more proud of. That if there was an audience watching them filled with everyone they admire, including their future successful selves, would they be clapping right now at what you're about to do in the middle of the kitchen in a fight? And I run that heuristic. I don't always get it right, but when I do think, what would I have to say to my husband right now, even though I'm fucking pissed? What would I have to say right now to have the audience in my mind clapping for me? What comes out is something that's much more aligned with my values. And it usually makes my life better. So,
yes. Say more about this piece of self-esteem, because I know that self-esteem, like you said, it's a direct correlation with what we put up with in our life and what we attract into our life as well.
Yep.
And I do see so many women right now breaking free from these old patterns of low self-worth. And it's a really amazing time that we're living in, where women are no longer willing to settle for emotional abuse or physical abuse, but also just no longer willing to settle for, partners that aren't respectful or whatever.
Anything less.
Not just like,
devotion.
Yeah.
Self-esteem. I love Nathaniel Brandon's book. He's written a book. It's a top 10 book. I recommend reading it. It's called The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem. A lot of really great exercises in it, but he defines self-esteem as having two facets. So first facet is your ability to cope with what life brings your way. So reality's happening, and can you hang? Can you cope with it? That's about resilience and coping and having self-regulation tools and being able to deal. Second part of self-esteem is believing that you deserve to be happy. It's about worthiness and dignity and value. And so to have high self-esteem, you actually need to work in both these dimensions. Usually we're better at one than the other. Like I've always been good at coping with fucking anything. Like bring it. But when I learned that high self-esteem meant I had to believe I deserved to be happy. I was like, no one ever told me I deserve to be happy. Like, that's a new piece of data. And, so, depends on whoever's listening might ask yourself, like, which one of these facets of self-esteem do you need to cultivate? So he has lots of exercise in there to cultivate self-esteem. But it's also domain specific. Like, I have very, very high self-esteem around solving emotional issues, apologizing, cleaning up a situation where I hurt somebody. But don't ask me to cook you dinner, and don't ask me to fix your computer. And I can't organize a closet to save my life. Like, there's so many things I have low self-esteem around. So I'm in the business of helping my clients build their individual self-esteem around relating romantically and in general. And then with a couple, what I'm working on is building the self-esteem of the couple. So there's these two people in a relationship, and a new emergent entity comes online. It's like an organism. That's the relationship. And that's who I work for, not the individuals. I'm in service of the health of that relationship. And if either two partners do anything to undermine the health of that relationship, they're going to have to answer to me. But I'll reflect lovingly back, right? It's like they're co-parenting this baby, and my job is to take care of the baby. And so self-esteem is domain specific. And so you can have very, very high self-esteem and run your business and be like, a billionaire, but not feel worthy of a true love relationship.
I see this all the time, especially with women in my community who they have, worked really hard to be successful in their careers. And they've really excelled in that area of, and not specifically because like, I don't need a man, but it's like, oh, I want to be able to generate and like to support myself. Right. And then in other areas of their life, whether that's with their health or with, calling in a partner and feeling fully worthy of love, like there's a discrepancy between those two areas. So I really love that you highlighted that we can have self-esteem that differs in different areas of our life.
And that's, I don't say this on my website, but really I'm here to build the self-esteem of individuals so they feel worthy of devotion, so they can attract that. And then once they found their partner, I work on the self-esteem of the relationship. I want their relationship to strut through reality with panache, like the actual relationship. And every relationship exists for a reason. It's not an accident you're with your partner. You're with that partner because together you can create some kind of unique value for reality that wouldn't have been made otherwise. And you want to find out what is that dharmic imperative for the relationship. Like, sure, we got to find our purpose and our calling and our dharma. And you want to have a partner that is a trampoline for your dreams and a sanctuary for your heart. But what is the dharma or the purpose for your relationship? And why should the world be clapping for your us, for your couple? And if you don't have a good reason, the world might not be clapping. Your relationship is either adding to the world and your community and your friendships or not. And so I would love to help people get conscious of the identity and the branding of their couplehood and to start consciously signaling to each other and to the world, don't fuck with us. We got shit to do. We're together to make some magic happen, which might be children, might be projects or activism. Or why did it matter that you guys fell in love to the universe? Why did it matter? What did you do with it? And so I really want the couples, once we get them out of the power struggle enough to start collaborating is when the relationship starts to actually walk in a direction and make value. And that's what I'm really committed to.
Yeah, I'm so inspired by that vision. And I love the way that you see beyond what the two people, beyond the conflict, beyond, what's happening right now, but really seeing that, okay, what is the purpose? And when we go beyond this struggle or this conflict and we work through that, like, what does that create in the world? And how inspiring is that if when we have, because that's what we're creating, then when we have couples who are not only like harmonious and able to work through conflict when it does arise, because it's going to arise, but then like what is available from that place and what can we create in the world? Like, that's the kind of world I want to live in.
And what if, I actually think couples are the fundamental unit of leadership in our culture and the fundamental unit of intelligence, just like our brain. And so what if every leadership position in every company, country, community wasn't some guy with a sidekick wife? What if it was a couple in love, and every decision that company or country had to make had to go through both value sets, both nervous systems, in a powerful couple where neither one collapsed or coerced. They trusted each other's intelligence and they hammered and tussled it out. And then the decision that they made, both of them could sign their name to it. If that's how decisions were made in our world, I just think we'd be in a different world. It's so much more trustable if it has to go through both of their genius and neither one's a sidekick. I see that as the future of leadership. And so not only do I want each couple to find its strut and its purpose and its branding, I want couples to start to work together in communion to lead the species. Because the first leaders we ever meet is mom and dad. You know, we wake up and we're like, the mom and dad are the first leaders. And when they do psychedelic therapy and healing, the way they do it is there's always a male and a female therapist on both sides to represent the leadership role and the transference. So whenever you have leaders that are male and female together and working collaboratively, it calls on some ancient tribal wiring of, oh, if they're in collaboration, it's trustable and we can like sink into safety. And so my vision is that couples are able to work through conflict and collaborate on important decisions for the world. And then they work together in communities because you and your partner can see each other's blind spots, but you and them have a blind spot at the level of your couple that only another couple can see. So you need to be in communities of couples that reflect back your magnificence and your opportunities to grow. And that's really the project I'm doing with my husband now. We're creating communities of couples that are in love, and we're bringing them together to share the maps and tools and hacks that they've developed in their own little siloed reality. Because every couple has worked through some shit that other couples are still struggling with. So what if we could crowdsource the genius of all these couples and have them teach it to each other? So we're all like, you know, have access. So that's kind of our project right now, is being a hub for spectacular couples that are up to the highest game.
Yes. Yeah. And it's really cool to see what can happen when you have these, you know, couples who have all had their own experience, all have been through their own conflicts, their own challenges, their own things that are working for them. And then to bring that together and to learn from each other. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really fun.
Yeah. Okay. So one last question I have, and it is semi like a personal question that I've been sitting with and that I sit with in my relationship. And I think it's something that I'm inquiring about specifically as, you know, the world of like committed relationship and marriage, like what it used to be is, we know that doesn't work. The old school, like till death do us part, and like the foundation of that. Right. And then there's an evolution that's happening in even just spirituality and in consciousness of where the future of relationships is going. And so there's a term that I've heard you and several other really amazing couples use, which is like the all-in relationship, or it's something like, I don't know if it's like it's like till the end of time or something like that, you know, and something that, and maybe it's because both my partner and I have been divorced before. So it could be from our own experience. We also do have a spiritual, like, devotion to truth. Yeah. And so if the devotion is to truth, and like, how are we to know, like, even if we say, okay, I want to be with you for the rest of my life, what if like life brings us in different directions and truth is moves us in different ways. Like, yeah. So I'm in that curiosity of like, I'm in devotion to love and truth.
Yeah.
Right. And then I see couples around me and incredible couples are like, we're in it. Like, we're all in forever. And I'm like, but how do you know forever? Like, we don't know forever. I don't think I do.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I was going to use a metaphor.
Yeah.
So, not that I'm Christian, but you know, the story about the three kings looking for baby Jesus. And what did they use to guide themselves? The star. They used a star, and that guided them in the direction. Now, did they actually go to the star? Like get in a spaceship and go to the star? No, that was a point that they used to get somewhere. So I'm in forever till death do us part. I'm in devotionist relationship. The commitment to staying all in, no matter what, is a context that calls forward a level of personal growth, actualization, and development that is not available at all if you leave it out. So So I say to my husband, I'm staying with you forever. We're in for the rest of our lives. And I mean, I can't know. What if I can't know if he gets hit by some bus and he's comatose and I don't have a husband anymore and he can't even talk. Like, who knows? Who knows what happens? But the North Star that I'm using to govern my current behavior is I'm in no matter what. And what that and that's not easy to say. That's some scary shit. Okay. It took me 5 years of being married before I could actually mean it. I said it, but I didn't quite get there yet. But once I got there, I'm like, oh shit, if I'm in this forever, I gotta make this work. I gotta stand for what doesn't work for me. I gotta speak up. I gotta represent. I gotta build a system that allows me and him and my daughter to thrive. And so it's like, you know, the metaphor of, I don't know who it was that burned the bridges to the boats.
Oh, yeah.
Great Alexander the Great or one of them. He's like, all right, I'm sending you onto the beach and you got to fight. There's no place to retreat.
Yeah.
So when there's no place to retreat onto the boats, you got to fight in a different way. And so the reason for the commitment is so you get the fight from you, the stand that you wouldn't get if you had a way out. And so it's not that I don't believe there's a time to graduate. I call break graduate. You graduate from the school. And when you graduate, it's a time for celebration because you leave with an education. It's not a failure. No relationship is a failure. When you graduate, you know, university, you're like, I got my diploma and that I fucking learned something. And so I just want to honor that not every relationship needs to last forever. Every guy I dated, I'm not with anymore. But they weren't failures. They were successes. And so I want to help couples believe that there is a kind of devotional relationship that they could make the claim, I'm in forever, so that they can access the ability to generate faith from nothing. Because, listen, relationships are hard as fuck. It's a gladiator sport. And if I didn't have that commitment, I'd have done run screaming. And I wouldn't have accessed new levels of my emotional intelligence, my resilience, my audacity. I know how to generate faith from the darkest moment of despair. And I wouldn't know how to do that, far less teach others, if I hadn't fucking thrown my head over the fence and said, I'm in. Every once in a while, when I get really upset with my husband, I'll be like, I'm committed in this lifetime, but I don't know if I'm looking for you in the next lifetime. So, like, I'm in.
Yeah.
And the reason I was going to give the metaphor with a child, like, if someone was going to have a child, they're going to drive you crazy. Crazy as fuck, okay? And somehow every mother knows you can't just like go, okay, I'm done, take the child back universe. No matter what happens, you're in for life, basically. And so we are capable. We are capable of saying, no matter what, I am a stand that this relationship stays nourishing and thriving. Can we predict everything? May it change? I don't know, but I'm going to die trying. And that's a different stance. I can't predict the future, but if I had to commit to truth or love, I'm going to pick love every day, right? As a lover. I'm also a philosopher. I studied philosophy. Literally, I have a degree in philosophy. But I don't think there's any higher truth than choosing love. Because love, when you choose love, which doesn't mean staying in a situation that's suboptimal for your well-being, okay? But when you choose love, as in, I'm going to keep my heart open no matter what, including if I have to say, it's over, including if I have to kill someone. There's no circumstance under which it's more optimal to have your heart closed. So what I'm standing for is, can you keep your heart open in every circumstance? And if you can do that, you'll notice you'll be able to build your relationship to a level of sophistication that you just wouldn't access otherwise. And there will be a time, if the person's not right for you, there will be a time where you'll go, I got the nutrient I came for. I got the education, and then you will organically graduate. Either you'll graduate or they'll graduate. Every couple that's together is together because they're here to get an education, and they're going to stay until they get the education. And some schools you want to stay in forever, and some you need to graduate. And so just to be tuned in, are you falling more in love with yourself in your life because of the relationship? And not every moment I have that with my husband, but definitely more often than not. And so that's what you want to be asking. Is this relationship producing a context where I'm falling more in love with myself and my life? And if the answer isn't more often than not yes, you need to graduate.
So potent from the time that we started talking, I've been just beaming. I've loved everything that you've shared. And I know I'm going to go back to this and listen to it over and over again. And I'm sure our listeners are as well. And yeah, I'm so grateful that you've shared some of your wisdom with us today. And there's so much more. So for our listeners who want to keep journeying with you and going deeper with you, where is a good place for them to find you? What do you have going on right now that you'd love to share?
Well, I'm on Instagram. I'm always putting up reels with my best ideas. I'm at LallaBird, so LallaBird. That's my Instagram. And
you have a few quizzes too that are really
my
awesome.
website, AnnieLalla.com, ANNIELALLA.com. So 2 N's in Annie, 2 L's in Lalla. You can get a 10-question love quiz to find out if your partner's in love with you or whether you're really in love with them. And I really tried to think of how do you know if you're in love with someone? Try to think of the questions. There's lots of free content on there as well. I teach coaches. I teach love coaches, people who want to be relationship leaders, either coaching other relationships or just to master their own relationship skills, called Heart Coach. And that's something that people can study with me for 3 months and really become masterful in all the technologies and maps I've been developing to navigate relationships. And I have a couple courses I think I'm going to offer your tribe for free. So we can leave links to that. I think I have, I can't remember what we decided on, but there's a couple courses that I would love to contribute to your tribe. They can just have access to that so they can dive in deeper. There's the art of fighting, how to find Mr. Right.
Yeah, we'll
get him to marry you.
We'll make sure to link all of that in the show notes. And thank you for your generosity and sharing those. And yeah, I'm excited for our listeners to take this and really not just feel inspired by it, but really use this as fuel and as empowerment to know that they get to create extraordinary relationships and to not only for themselves but for whether it's their children or their communities. Yeah, that's what we're co-creating here.
Yeah, and extraordinary doesn't mean perfect. It doesn't mean you're happy all the time. Extraordinary means shit happens and then you find your way back home to us and you repair the rupture. It's not we don't fight anymore. It's we fight and then we can repair in 3 minutes instead of 3 days. And you keep getting better at that. And then the last thing I just want to say to everyone listening is I'm on a mission to collect the most extraordinary in-love couples on the planet and bring them together to share codes. So if you've been together with your partner more than 5 years, you're deeply in love and committed, and you've been mapping terrain of relationship dynamics, I would just love to hear. You could write in. I'm building a mastermind of couples in love, and we've done a few of them in Austin, and there's such a storehouse of wisdom in every couple. They don't even know that they have all this magical tools that if the world could have access to, it would change their lives.
Incredible. All right. Well, we'll link your info so they can reach out to you. And thank you for the incredible work that you're doing in the world.
I'd delight to be here.